Hey guys, insight number 3, we're in chapter 20. Yes, did we skip over 19? Absolutely. Does that mean you don't read it? No, go have a read of it. This is King Noah suffers his death as Abinadi said it was going to happen, so that's kind of satisfying in many ways. And this is where Limhi comes in. So we've already been introduced to Limhi in the timeline. We're now catching up to where we were before we went back and looked at the story of how Noah got to be there and how Abinadi was there. So remember that Alma's escaped. So this is this timeline, and it'll pick up again in the other timeline a couple of chapters later, 23 and 24, I believe. But anyway, so if you're not too worried about timelines, don't worry about it. Just know that these stories happen simultaneously rather than one after the other. So this talks about Gideon coming in, and he's an enemy to the king, and he's strong, and he talks about, how they're going to do this, and they go chasing them, and the priests take off, and there's a whole thing. It's just quite ugly. It carries on in chapter 20. Some of the Lamanite daughters are abducted. They go and have like a, spa day retreat and that they're known to have. It says that they gather themselves together in verse 1 of chapter 20 to sing and to dance and to make themselves merry. So they're having a girl's day out, right? But the priests that had escaped from Noah being killed, the ones we know that weren't good, they took off because they're like, oh, we didn't treat the people very well. I think they're going to want us dead too. So they take off. But they see these daughters of the Lamanites and go, ooh, and take them. And the Lamanites blame Limhi and his people, going, they must have done it. So again, think of your assumptions when things come up like this. But anyway, they come to war against them, and it's this whole ugly thing. Lamanites come in, and Limhi going, I see them from the tower and the preparations for war, and he's like, we're going to fight. We're not going down. They've come here to destroy us. Again, assumptions. So in verse 11, and this is the one I'm talking about here because there's a good message in here about fighting for a cause when it's the right cause. So first of all, check your assumptions. Again, being spirit-led. If they were, Limhi had admitted at this point he wasn't spirit-led, and we know the Lamanites weren't in a place of being spirit-led, but to check your assumptions. Now, thank goodness Gideon comes in, because he comes in later and has a chat and says, hey, look, can we just listen to the situation and let's talk about it? But in this it says, and it came to pass that the people of Limhi began to drive the Lamanites before them, yet they were not half so numerous as the Lamanites, but they fought for their lives, and for their wives, and for their children. Therefore they exerted themselves, and and like dragons did they fight. Now, if it's for a good cause, like we see Captain Moroni pull up the title of liberty, and for our wives, for our children, for our land, if it's for our freedom and our good causes, how do you fight? And does fighting like dragons always mean actually getting up there with a sword and killing people? No, it doesn't. So although not guilty and accused of the crime under bondage, Limhi and his people still defended themselves. So they weren't going down. And Limhi thought they'd come to absolutely destroy them. The Lamanites thought they'd come to get these people that had taken these beautiful daughters of theirs. So they both thought they're fighting for a good cause. And that's why assumptions. Check your assumptions. But like dragons did they fight. They fought this good cause. So even though deliverance from God comes different from each of us, and Limhi's people are going to get delivered, and we'll read that in the next few chapters, they still, while they're waiting, need to fight, but spirit-led. Limhi wasn't spirit-led. We need to fight spirit-led. We've got to have dragon strength along with faith in the fact that deliverance will come, and that part of that fight might simply look like enduring the trials, or the trial while we're waiting and continuing each day as a disciple of Christ. Excuse me. It's interesting, and I bring this up because I know a lot of people, including myself, that have gone through many different trials where assumptions were made. And you get accused of things, or you're in a situation where you cannot defend yourself, and you literally do just have to wait. And those waiting places can be those extreme camping places, those waste places, and we learn a lot, and we find Christ, or we don't, and we become bitter. There's a lot of things that can happen in that time. But the difference it makes in fighting like a dragon, when you are so pushed down and disparaged and despair, and you have zero support except for Jesus Christ and maybe a handful of people, if that, and you can seem very alone. I mean, think of how Moroni felt all those years in the wilderness. Yeah, he had some visitations, but most of the time he was by himself. And he fought like a dragon for a good cause. We need that strength, and we get that strength by having those extreme camping moments where we stick together like Alma's people did. Right now we're talking about Limhi's people, so different set of people here. But they become the same way. And we see that they humble themselves and actually start turning to Christ and having those moments. And we need those moments to learn to have that relationship with Christ before these moments come, so that when we're in them, we can rely on him more fully, knowing that deliverance will come from the bondage that we're in, whatever that's going to look like. Whether it's a actual physical storm, whether it's an emotional storm, whether it's depression, whether it's financial problems, whether it's marital problems, whatever it might be. And there is such a vast array of things. We need to have that spirit-led fight like a dragon, even if that fight just looks like enduring another day with a smile on our face as best we can. We need that for that good cause, and to never give up crying to Jesus for deliverance, but also commit in the waiting to a spirit-led fight, because that will make all the difference to surviving it, to growing and becoming and being someone like Gideon is described here. He's someone that would not go down without a fight. You see, Limhi didn't, but they get more spiritual and they realize that there's other ways to fight too. And actually sometimes the fighting looks like fleeing, and we'll talk about that. Sometimes the best way to fight is to actually leave. And sometimes it is. And I know a lot of women that have been through that. I've known a few men that have been through that. And it's going to look different. It's not always with the sword, but there's a lot to learn from these stories. I encourage you and invite you to read the rest of these chapters, because we're going to go over to chapter 21 to 24 and have a quick read through that before we finish up in 23 and 24. So there is a lot of reading, but there's a lot of things to be learned here around how to prepare ourselves to fight like this, to survive spiritually these days. President Nelson said that same thing. We need this kind of relationship if we are to survive spiritually. It keeps us surviving physically, but we need to survive spiritually. Fight like a dragon. Dragons, did they fight like that? So we need that. In those extreme camping moments, build that relationship, because it's going to help you. All right. Hope that means something to you. It means a whole lot to me. That's where I discovered Jesus in my extreme camping moments, and there was many years of that. And there was deliverance, and there continues to be deliverance from many different things that I go through, but it's going to look different. So even though this is a very physical bondage, and this is a very physical fight, most of the things we face are going to be emotional and spiritual these days. So we need to be able to strengthen our inner core and our spirituality and our relationships to be able to do that. All right, 21 to 24, we're going to go there next. I'll see you there.